Hi everyone, welcome back to Laravel Academy. It's Mickey, and in today's lesson, I want to talk about policies within Laravel. A policy acts alongside gates within Laravel and allows us as the developer to control who has access to certain items within our database, whereas the gate controls what the user can actually do. I have a simple example of a note application in front of me. And it's not coded very well. For example, right here we can see all of my notes and I can edit and delete them. I haven't finished these functions, but let's go ahead and click edit. You can see that we're displaying the contents from the database itself. However, there's no security on here. So let's say I go up to the top and I change the 8 to a 15. Let's hit enter and you can see that the note actually loads up, even though the user does not equal the user I'm logged in. Now, you might be thinking, how can we fix this? We can easily go over to our IDE, and within the controller, for example, mine's the home controller, we can add a simple if statement here to check whether or not our user actually owns that note. And we can do that by using the auth ID. I want to make sure that we use not equals. And for this example, I'll just return a string saying not our note. Okay, let's save this and refresh. So this should error, and unfortunately this isn't the error that we're looking for. Let's quickly go back to our code, and right here I missed the triangle bracket, so let's hit refresh and you can see that now it is not our note. Now this is all good, however what we'd have to do is take the if statement, copy and paste it in the destroy, and basically anywhere else that we need to make sure that the note is ours. Now this is where a policy comes into play. It provides us a simple way to extract this information and throw into a central class. Here, let's load up our console and let's create our first policy. We'll say PHP artisan make policy. Now we give it a name, and I'm going to use note policy, and an optional parameter will be the model. And for instance, I'm going to use my note model. Now you can see in the background here, we have a new policies folder. If we open that up, we have a note policy. And once we're inside here, you can see that our note model is already filled in with all of these different functions. And that's just a whole bunch of scaffolding that we don't really have to do. So it's just a nice way to generate this policy for us. Now, before we actually get working on the policy, there's one more thing that we have to do, and it's just a little bit of manual work. We're going to have to we're going to have to switch over to our providers, and we want to look at the auth service provider. And in here at the top, you can see we already have some placeholders for the policy mappings. So all we need to do is tell Laravel what model and what policy to map to. So I'm going to remove the string here, and I'm going to be using the app/note class, and it's going to be referring to the model here found underneath app, and the policy I'm going to use app policies and then note policy, and then just end it with the class. Now with that hooked up, you can see it's already going to be registered in the boot method, so we're done with this file and we can close it. Now the next thing we're going to have to do is take this little if statement here and extract it out into the policy. So let's just get this working to how it was so we can look up notes where we don't actually own the note itself. Now let's switch back to our IDE and let's go over to our note policy. Now, for example, when we're editing a note, we got to think about what action is actually happening in the database. Well, we need to load up the note to view. So we'll use the view policy method here. And all we have to do is return true or false. If we return false in this function, we will receive an authorization exception or a 403 on production. Now, our if statement is going to be pretty simple here. So let's actually write out a return statement. So we could say return whether or not the user ID equals the user ID on the note model itself. So this is going to return true or false, and that will let us through. However, we're not done quite yet. There's a bunch of different ways that we can use this policy. We can use it in middlewares, or we can use it in the user, but what I'm going to be actually using it on is my controller, and there's a helper function for the controller that we can use this with. So all we really need to do inside our edit, we could say this, authorize, and next we want to pass in what function we want to authorize, which is view, and we have to tell it what model to use it with. So once again, the authorize function here is going to take the function or the method that we want to authorize against, and we need to pass in the model itself. For example, is note. And you might notice that Laravel automatically is going to pass in the user, so we don't have to worry about that. And then we're just going to check the user ID based on the notes user ID. This will return true or false, and then we'll either come down here to the die and dump, or we will get thrown 403 exception or an authorization exception here. So let's actually go back to Chrome and let's see if this is working properly. Now on item 15, we know we can't edit it, so we should get a 403 error. So this is correct. However, let's actually go home and let's try one of the notes that we currently have access to. All right, let's click the edit button here and let's see what happens. That's not right. We don't really want a 403. According to our policy, we should be able to access our own notes. So what's the matter? Well, I left this in here just for a simple mistake. If we go to our providers and we go to the auth service provider, what we actually need to do is use the full namespace here. So we can either use a backslash, or we can import it at the top. For example, with the policy one, I'll do this one. I'll say use app policies note policy, and then all we have to do is refer to the class itself as note policy. Now with that all working, let's try this again, and you should see that we're able to access the note that we own. And just for good measure, let's try and edit one of the notes that the user ID does not equal 1, and we know that that note specifically is 15, so let's go up to the URL and change it to 15 here. So you can see we get the 403 as expected. Now if we go home, we could edit and delete the notes that we currently have because they are under our user ID. So just once again going over the policy very quickly here, the function view is going to return true or false, and in our case it's returning based on the user ID. So does our current logged in user, which Laravel passes in automatically, does it equal the note user ID? And if it does, then we're going to return true, and that will let us through. If it does not, this will result in a false, and we will get an authorization exception or a 403 as you saw. You may be also asking yourself, well, why would I use this? So we kind of talked about that at the beginning, but let's say our requirements changed for the view here. We also have to have this in the destroy, so we'll copy this and paste it in the destroy. And then down the road, our requirements change. So the viewing a note, the user now also needs to be subscribed. So in here, we would change the return, whether it's a true or false. And both of our functions with the edit and the delete would automatically be updated with those rules. So it's more of a one place where we change the validation, and then these two functions would automatically get that validation for us. Now recording this video went a little bit longer than expected, but I'd like to say thank you. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to spread the word. And also if you would like to quickly check out the Patreon page, that would be great. Once again, thanks a lot, and I hope you learned a few things.